Black Rifle Coffee Company is getting thrown under the bus right now based on an article which is very left-leaning and trying to tie them as closely to the right as possible in the most extreme ways. We're going to talk about that right here because this is getting spicy.
Yo, bro, I don't even have time to respond. I'm in the airport right now making happen. Hi, sir. He looked at me. He's a cool guy. We'll put a podcast out soon. All this misinformation you guys are listening to is hilarious. My favorite part of all this is how, like, people that are conservative or cross-out themselves are conservative are listening to the New York Times. Get out of here, bro. Get out of here. Yeah, my woke shut the bitch.
Founder Evan Hafer says, I hate R words, proud boy-ish people, like I'll pay them to leave my customer base. Sounds pretty bad, right? But that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about this article, because it is getting very much nitpicky and in the weeds. So the New York Times writes an article, Can the Black Rifle Coffee Company become the Starbucks of the right? And captions it saying the company doubled its sales last year by leaning into America's culture war. It's also trying to distance itself from some of its new customers. I like how they're just like up front, they've capitalized on the culture wars. We know where this history goes. It's definitely someone trying to put some stuff together. So the article covers an interview with one of the founders of Black Rifle Coffee Company, Evan Hafer, and Matt Best, military veterans of one of the biggest military veteran companies. In the article, he claims to be a conservative from the beginning, and the author, Jason Zingerle, presses to pin him down to a political far right of extremism. Now, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that Black Rifle Coffee Company has been known to support Second Amendment and to support law enforcement and to support military and public service people that are in this realm or sector. Now, I can't read this entire article. I will link it down below for your own reading. It is about a 40-minute playthrough. They do allow an audio playthrough if you want to go through that as well and listen for yourself. But I'm going to hit the highlights and wickets of what's being discussed in this article and how they're coming after Black Rifle Coffee Company. I wanted to annotate and clarify, I've read the entire article from front to back, entirety, actually twice now. And I wanted to say, as my research for this video, I actually noticed that another creator known as The Quartering did cover this topic as well, but did say that he reported on it and didn't even actually spend the time to read the article. And I'll play that clip right
from this article. And I'm not going to read this trash because essentially it's, you know, a fluff piece for Black Rifle Coffee. You can see.
As you can see, Jeremy from The Quartering is reporting on news and actually perpetuating hate culture towards Black Rifle Coffee Company without even getting the facts straight or including any of the statements from the members of the Black Rifle Coffee Company that you're going to see right here. And by the way, if you guys are into this controversy, you should be into subscribing to the channel because we're on our way to the next goal, 150K. We'd appreciate it. Also, please hit like. Now, during this article, Jason, the author here, likes to bring together a bunch of different context issues that have happened over the past couple years and how they've actually been linked towards Black Rifle Coffee Company, because people have questioned, is Black Rifle Coffee Company linked to these events? Do they endorse these events in the news of certain individuals that are acting in a certain way? And does that mean that their audience or their base or their customer is this person? Does that really reflect or represent the company itself? We'll talk about some of the instances that he discusses here in the article. New York Times covers that Hafer was familiar with public spotlight after the Kyle House situation, and then in DC when a man known as Zip Tie Guy wore a patch from Black Rifle Coffee Company. And Jason also discusses how the military was regarded by former President Trump, and then Jason tries to project those things on some of the founders of BRCC, and essentially they can't find anything because he doesn't say anything good, doesn't say anything bad. And I'm like, Jason, in this article you can tell you're hunting, you're looking for nitpicking any way possible in that. Matt Best actually goes on the defense and quotes in the article saying this: every brand, name the brand. It was probably there. Walmart jeans, Nike shoes, he said. And then it's like the one patch from her company. There's a certain T organization that wear American brands when they go to take off their head Americans. Do you think they want to be part of that? And I'm not drawing a parallel between the two. I'm just simply saying there are things in business when you grow that are completely outside your control. And that's kind of hard because as they've had this foundation and what their mission statement is for helping veterans and to establish this, you know, we look at this and we have to say, how much responsibility does Black Rifle Coffee Company hold? And in my opinion, I really don't think that they should be held accountable for having this. They have not particularly endorsed an event or held a fundraiser or done anything like that for an event like taking over a city or whatever else. Like, you can't hold that same accountability to smaller organizations like this because they are smaller and not hold those same type of things towards something that is bigger. I just find it ironic how in June, when it was Pride Month, we're sitting here looking at this situation and we're telling organizations that are out there, or businesses, stop trying to push your agenda. We don't care if you are about Pride Month. And I kept hearing about that everywhere. And now we're hearing from the other side. I'm just like, which is it? Can we just disassociate the brands? Actually goes on to talk about this even more and says this: you can't let sections of your customers hijack your brand and say, this is who you are, Best told me. It's like, no. We define that. The House episode may have cost the company thousands of customers, but Hafer believed it also allowed Black Rifle to draw a line in the sand. It's such a repugnant group of people, Hafer said. It's like the worst of American society, and I got to flush the toilet of some of those people that kind of hijack portions of the brand. Then again, what Hafer insisted was a super clear delineation. The R word blank really pisses me off, Hafer said. I hate R words, proud boyish people. Like, I'll pay them to leave my customer base. I would gladly chop all of those people out of my customer database and pay them to get the blank out. If that was the case, I asked, had Black Rifle, which sells Thin Blue Line coffee, considered changing the name of its Beyond Black coffee, a dark roast it has sold for years, to Beyond BL. Surely they would alienate the R words, polluting its customer base. Now, the last point that Jason writes in his article is a part of a tour that I guess he took in a supply closet of some design that happened on a coffee bag that was actually pulled off of the market, or actually never made it to market. Hafer and Best were talking in a glorified supply closet in the Salt Lake City offices, where potential designs for new coffee bags were hanging on the wall. One of them featured a Renaissance-style rendering of St. Michael the Archangel, a patron saint of military personnel shooting a short-barreled rifle in Afghanistan and Iraq. Hafer knew the number of squad mates who had a St. Michael tattoo. For a time, he wore into battle a St. Michael pennant the Catholic friend gave him. But while the St. Michael design was being mocked up, Hafer said he learned from a friend at the Pentagon that an image of St. Michael's trampling on a Satan had been embraced by the white S because it was reminiscent of the taking of the life of George Blank. Now any plans for the coffee bag had been scrapped. This won't see the light of day, Hafer said. I have to ask, Jason, if you're going to bring this up and say this, I have to question, like, did you want them to put that on the market, or did you want them to be insensitive? It's like you're holding something against them where it's like a lose-lose battle the entire way. And I don't want to defend Black Rifle too much on this, but I can just read such bias in the story. But Evan actually goes more into this and takes to Instagram and talks about this story and tells a little bit more detail and what he deems to be the truth.
There is a significant amount of misinformation being put out on the internet about Black Rifle and about statements that I've made. And I think it's really important for everybody to get this directly from me. Number one, the first and probably the most important inaccuracy in any story published is that I've somehow made derogatory statements towards my customers or conservatives. And I'll give you the context behind this. So the actual conversation was taking place around anti-Semitism and racism in America. And then our attack, because we were attacked last year by a group of very organized anti-Semites, if you didn't know, and they were targeting me because of my last name and because of my heritage. We were purely discussing that. I said, anti-Semites and racists do not have a place in my company, and I will gladly tell them to leave and pay them. So that's what I was referencing. The context of the conversation was only about that.
And it's hard when that freedom is there for somebody to put your words on paper and what part of that they'll actually take. And I have to say that was very ballsy and a very big risky move by some of the leadership and the co-founders of Black Rifle Coffee Company. They actually go into the St. Michael incident as well, and he says this.
So St. Michael is a patron saint of paratroopers. That image is something that I've been directly connected with for over 20 years. I carried a pendant of St. Michael to Iraq, Afghanistan, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Rome. I have zero issue with that image, zero. We did a piece of art that we still have in our art department with St. Michael holding an SBR. And around the same time that we finished it, the DoD had released a list of images that could be deemed inappropriate or extreme in nature. That was one. I have no idea why, but we were just in the position that if the DoD is going to label this, then we're going to have to flush it out and figure out why before we move anything forward. It was one of 800 different designs that I say either yay or nay to throughout the year. So it still hangs on our wall. We have zero issue with it, and we'll get clarification from the DoD as to why it was put on that list.
Let's be honest, Black Rifle Coffee Company is based in a veteran fashion. They understand the rules of the Department of Defense. They understand that factor and their base of audience as that being primarily the core base that started everything. And so do you think they're going to be like, hey guys, I know that this symbol is banned by the Department of Defense and you guys support us, so we're going to let you buy this shirt and get in trouble and not be allowed to wear it. Or maybe you wear that and you as our audience get in trouble by your commands or whatever else. You know, I don't think everyone's looking into what these symbols mean. And it's like, you got to stay ahead of the curve of what all these things mean and be aware of what you're representing. I was very happy the fact that they were tracking this and maybe understanding like this is not something we stand for and taking it back. And that was even a loss to their company. And he actually does talk about the Beyond Black coffee roast that they're talking about. And he says this.
He asked me, well, why don't you change Beyond Black to Beyond BLM? And I said, no, it'll never happen. That was it. We took a significant amount of time, and I think for clarification purposes is also important.
All right, so here's my breakdown of the story. Did Black Rifle Coffee Company even need to do this? No. Evan mentions that in the whole video. I will link his Instagram down below where you can watch the entire thing on IGTV as well to watch this entire thing unfold. And you can definitely make your own opinion from that. But I have to say it was risky. It was something that was not necessary. I understand he was trying to be transparent as much to the public, and obviously that does give a check from another side. And I would say, if anything, that means he's not trying to live in an echo chamber. And I would say that's kind of what's weird about this is you see Jason pulling them from one side to the other, trying to make sure he's stuck in a corner. Lastly, I want to say here, I find it crazy that we're sitting here trying to hold one small company. Black Rifle Coffee Company is about a $250 million company as far as revenue that it says in this article here. And I'm like, there's so many other organizations that they could attack that are bigger. And I guess it's like they're not as vulnerable, and it would be harder to attack some of these bigger organizations that maybe do fund some of the stuff that he's against, which I understand. What was the purpose of this article? Were you trying to destroy BRCC just for the sake of destroying a small veteran-owned business? I'm trying to understand the purpose other than to paint them in a bad light and use them as a pawn. I have to ask Jason, did you want Black Rifle Coffee Company to make a disclaimer on their website? Anyone that wears our gear, we're not going to endorse whatever they do. Someone robs a bank in our t-shirts, we are now held accountable. That is the dumbest idea I could ever think of. So I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments below, because this is interesting that we are seeing a veteran business get attacked so hard. But leave those comments down below. I'd love to know what you guys think. As always, if you support what we do here on YouTube, you can always support over at patreon.com for special perks and benefits. On top of that, we do have a YouTube membership button. You can press join for special perks and benefits here on YouTube as well. As always, if you guys have questions about this or anything else, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.